Hello, this is Jon Speelman with the game of the day for the 7th round of the 3rd Sinquefield Cup in St. Louis, Missouri. And the round's actually still continuing as I'm doing this. Magnus Carlsen is trying to defend himself against Alexander Grischuk. And my feeling is that he'll almost certainly succeed. Though if the roles are reversed in this position, I'm not so sure that Magnus wouldn't find a way to at least make his opponent very uncomfortable. Anyway, even if Magnus does draw, then he'll still be half a point behind the winner of the game I'm going to do, who's Levon Aronian, who beat Hikaru Nakamura and has gone into the clear lead. So, let's start. It's Roy Lopez. Nakamura, of course, won a wonderful game yesterday as black against Wesley So, and he must have been riding high. But actually, when the best game of the year, or perhaps the decade, when Wei Yi won this fantastic game against, was it Lazaro Bruzon, a few months ago, the next day he lost a rather miserable game to Wang Yuye. So it doesn't necessarily help you being on a high to play chess. Okay, so they're playing their moves. And when Aronian played castles, he was obviously preparing to play well, he's not certain, but almost certainly he was going to offer the Marshall Gambit. And nowadays, most of them play d3 for some reason. I'm not an e4 player, really, so I don't know the exact details. But Aronian does perfectly well with the Marshall, and so instead, Nakamura decided to play one of the anti-marshals. There are various ways you can do this. Lines where d5 isn't a viable gambit. a4 is the old way to do it, but d3 is possible, a3 is possible, h3 I think may be possible. Almost any move on the board apart from c3, taking the c3 square away from your knight. Anyway, he played a4, b4, and now he played d4, d6, takes. This is quite a tense strategical line, which Aronian has played at least a couple of times against Magnus Carlsen. He drew once and lost one, I think. And also, he had a game against Sergei Karyakin. When was this? In 2009, and in that game he played King f8, b3, King e7, which looks like a perfectly normal sort of thing to do. But after bishop d5, knight takes, pawn takes, knight a7, knight takes e5, it all worked out very well from Karyakin, and he won eventually. So instead of that, Aronian, who obviously has studied this position, played a quieter move. Well, quiet move, not yet centralising his king. He played rook e8, over protecting the e5 pawn. Bishop d3, knight d7, e3, c5, bishop c4. Well, this bishop, okay, it's a way to get it out so as to connect all the boys, but it really isn't a very good diagonal. It's biting on iron, as they say, because this pawn can easily be bolstered by f7 to f6, and the bishop is really a rather terrible minor piece. So after f6, which indeed was played, I think black's basically perfectly all right. There's a claim, well, white can try to claim that the a6 pawn is weak, but the a5 pawn is no less weak, and the opening hasn't been a great success for Nakamura, who no doubt didn't know the position. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say didn't understand quite as well as Aronian did. So he took an e6. I thought maybe he should have kept the bishops on the board to keep more pressure on the a6 pawn, but I mean I doubt if it's anything anyway. Rook takes, knight c4, rook b8, and this prepares to go to b5 and to pressure this a5 pawn. It's very hard to take it, because when you take it, then you may well be